From the darkest reaches of space to the deepest corners of your mind. Welcome to From the Void.
This is From the Void, a show about the strange, the unsolved, and the stories that won't stay buried. I'm your host, John Williamson. And tonight, we begin with a name. Not a real name, but a symbol. A cipher. A taunt. In the late 1960s, a string of brutal killings haunted Northern California. Couples shot in parked cars, stabbed at lakesides. A cab driver murdered in cold blood on a quiet San Francisco street. But what turned those crimes from tragedy into obsession was the killer's voice. Letters, ciphers, phone calls. He called himself Zodiac. And for over 50 years, he's been the ghost of American true crime. Uncaught, unnamed, but not forgotten. In this special two-part investigation, we're going to peel back the layers. We'll examine the victims, not as statistics, but as people. We'll follow the evidence, the letters, and the cryptic puzzles. And we'll explore what makes this case more enduring and more dangerous than most of us realize. This is the Zodiac Killer. Smoke, Ciphers, and Silence. Part 1, The Victims. December 20th, 1968. It was just a few days before Christmas in the quiet town of Benicia, California. 17-year-old David Faraday was taking Betty Lou Jensen on their first real date. They'd driven his mother's station wagon out to Lake Herman Road, a dark, secluded stretch of countryside known to local teens. They parked near the edge of a gravel turnout. And then, sometime after 11 p.m., someone pulled up alongside them. We don't know what was said, if anything. What we do know is that David was shot once in the head just outside the car. Betty Lou ran. She didn't make it far. She was shot 5 times in the back. The killer used a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol. No robbery, no sexual assault, no apparent motive. Investigators were baffled, but they had no idea this wouldn't be a one-off. This was the beginning. Here's audio from the original interview on KRON on December 21st, 1968, with Detective Sergeant Leslie Lundblad of the Solano County Sheriff's Office.
Sergeant, could you briefly describe what apparently happened last night?
Yes, we had a double homicide that took place out on a county road about sometime after 11 o'clock last night. A double homicide involving victims were a 16-year-old girl and a 17-year-old boy.
How did this incident occur, apparently?
Well, they were shot.
What were the circumstances involved?
Possibly they were ordered out of the car by the responsible, and the boy was shot right at the side of the car, and the girl apparently tried to run, and she was shot and found 28 feet further on.
There was one bullet hole that penetrated one of the windows of the car. Was this a stray bullet, or was this one of the bullets that hit the victim and went on through?
This could be a stray bullet or a warning bullet of some sort that we can't connect it with the bodies, but it's the same type of shell.
Do you have any idea what the possible motive might be for this killing?
We have no motive at this time.
7 months later, just across town, it would happen again. David Faraday was a high school senior. He wore a flat-top haircut and a Letterman jacket. He played the saxophone and had dreams of joining the Air Force. Betty Lou Jensen was 16. She was bright, articulate. She loved drawing, worked hard in school, and planned to study art in college. That Friday night was special, their first real date. They went to a Christmas concert at a local church, then stopped at a gas station for sodas. Eventually, they drove out to a known lover's lane on Lake Herman Road, a narrow stretch of darkness flanked by ranch land and woods. It was just after 11 p.m. when a car pulled in behind them. Some reports suggest it was a light-colored sedan. The driver may have blocked them in. What happened next is chilling, and still unknown in exact detail. At some point, the killer exited his car and approached. Witnesses later reported hearing gunshots echo through the night. When a local woman passed through just minutes later, she found David slumped next to the passenger side door, shot in the head. Betty Lou lay further away, face down in the gravel. She tried to run. 5 bullets struck her from behind. There was no struggle, no evidence of a robbery. The scene was cold, calculated, and left no clear motive. The bullets were traced to a .22 caliber semi-automatic, likely a J.C. Higgins Model 80. Police were shaken. They'd seen crimes of passion, but not executions like this. No suspects, no leads. The case stalled until 7 months later. It was Independence Day, July 4th, 1969. Darlene Farron, 22, was a waitress at a local diner. Bubbly, kind, and known to light up a room. She was married but had reportedly met up that night with Michael Mageau, a 19-year-old friend. The two drove to Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo to talk. They parked in a lot near a grove of trees around midnight. That's when the car pulled up behind them. The headlights flooded the rear-view mirror. Then it pulled away. Moments later, it returned. A man got out. He approached their passenger window, holding a bright flashlight, blinding. Suddenly, he opened fire. Michael Mageau was shot in the jaw, neck, and shoulder, but survived. Darlene was hit multiple times. She died on arrival at the hospital. Roughly 40 minutes after the attack, a call came into the Vallejo Police Department. I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you'll find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. That call changed everything. Not just because the voice provided accurate unreleased details, but because the killer linked himself to the Lake Herman Road murders. And he signed off as if he were daring them to catch him. Ballistics confirmed it was a 9mm Luger, a different weapon than before, but the same method. Attack a couple, no clear motive, no robbery, and now, direct communication with law enforcement. The Zodiac had made himself known. Brian Hartnell was a 20-year-old pre-law student. He was thoughtful, articulate, and cautious by nature. Cecilia Shepard was 22, a senior at UC Riverside. She was bright and driven, studying music and psychology. The two had known each other for years and were spending the afternoon together at Lake Berryessa. It was a warm September day. They picnicked under the shade of a tree by the water's edge. At around 6:30 p.m., Brian noticed something odd. A man was standing about 200 feet away, watching them. He wore a black hood, the kind executioners used in medieval drawings. Over his chest, a crudely hand-drawn symbol, a white cross within a circle. He approached them holding a gun and said he was an escaped convict from Montana. He claimed he needed their car and money to flee to Mexico. Brian tried to stay calm. He offered to cooperate. The man gave him pre-cut links of clothesline and ordered Cecilia to tie Brian up, then tied her himself. Then, without warning, he pulled a long knife. He stabbed Brian 6 times in the back. Then he turned to Cecilia and stabbed her 10 times. The wounds were deep, deliberate. After the attack, the killer hiked back to Brian's car and used a black felt marker to write a message on the door. Vallejo 12/20/68, 7/4/69, September 27/69, 6:30 by knife. Alongside the Zodiac's cross circle symbol. An hour later, the Napa County Sheriff's Department received another call.
I want to report a murder. No, a double murder. They are 2 miles north of park headquarters. I'm the one who did it.
Cecilia passed away 2 days later in the hospital. Brian survived and gave one of the only first-hand descriptions of the Zodiac. He was deliberate, calm, methodical, and completely remorseless. On the night of October 11th, 1969, Paul Stein, a 29-year-old cab driver and former teacher, picked up a fare in downtown San Francisco. The passenger requested a ride to the upscale neighborhood of Presidio Heights. When they reached the corner of Washington and Cherry Streets, something unexpected happened. Paul was shot in the head with a 9mm pistol, execution style. The killer rifled through his pockets, tore away a piece of his shirt, and wiped down parts of the cab to remove fingerprints. Then, he calmly walked away, taking a piece of his victim with him. 3 teenagers witnessed the aftermath from a nearby house. They called 911 and watched the suspect walk north, up Cherry Street toward the Presidio. But here's where things took a chilling turn. The police dispatcher had mistakenly described the suspect as a black male. So when 2 patrol officers saw a white man walking nearby, they let him go. It's now believed they quite literally crossed paths with the Zodiac Killer and let him vanish into the night. Two days later, on October 13th, a letter arrived at the offices of the San Francisco Chronicle. It was addressed simply to the editor. Inside was a page-long message and a horrifying piece of evidence: a square of Paul Stein's bloody shirt. This was the first time Zodiac had written directly to the Chronicle, and it would not be the last. In fact, over the next year, he would make the paper his personal stage. He fed it letters, ciphers, jokes, threats, and claims of future killings, all wrapped in a tone that was smug, theatrical, and full of contempt. But this first letter wasn't just a confession It was a warning. Zodiac wrote, "School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out." The city panicked. Police cars began tailing school buses. Parents pulled their kids from classrooms. The threat may have been a bluff, but it worked. And the Zodiac knew it. He now had the attention he wanted. And the Chronicle had become his mouthpiece, willingly or not. Part 2. Letters from the Void. Ciphers, Taunts, and the Making of a Myth. The killings were terrifying. But what came next? That's what turned Zodiac from a killer into a cultural phantom. He didn't just want to take lives. He wanted an audience. And he found it in the newsroom of the San Francisco Chronicle. On August 1st, 1969, 3 nearly identical letters were sent to 3 different newspapers: the Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. Each envelope was handwritten. Inside was a single-page letter, in sloppy, all-capital block letters, and part 1 of a cipher made up of strange symbols: circles, triangles, backward letters, and hieroglyphics. Each paper received 1/3 of the full cipher. Zodiac demanded that they be printed on the front page, or, he warned, more people would die. He signed off for the first time with a chilling introduction.
Dear editor, I'm the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman.
These weren't random rants. They were part confession, part performance. Each line written with the confidence of someone who believed he couldn't be caught. The cipher was quickly dubbed Z408, 408 characters spread across 3 sections. While law enforcement scrambled to make sense of it, a local school teacher and his wife, Donald and Betty Harden, cracked it just over a week later. The message read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest." The letter continued with chilling glee, but ended on an ominous note. "I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." The tone was disturbing, childlike even, like someone who thought this was a game. But the coda left investigators frustrated. There was no name, no identity, just myth-making. Zodiac expert and author of the book, The Zodiac Killer, The Story of America's Most Elusive Murderer, Michael Butterfield, notes that even here, Zodiac was planting seeds. Violence mixed with delusion, and the suggestion of a larger belief system, but never enough to fully decode. Months later, more ciphers arrived, but these were shorter, stranger, and still unsolved. Z13 contained just 13 symbols, introduced with the taunt, "My name is." The code that followed seemed solvable, but decades later, no cryptographer has cracked it with confidence. Many believe it may be a red herring, a puzzle with no real answer. Z32 was another short cipher, sent with a map. Zodiac claimed it pointed to a hidden bomb that would detonate near a school. No bomb was ever found. But once again, the threat felt real. Zodiac's game was escalating. shifting from murder to terrorism. And the Chronicle was still publishing his letters, keeping the public enthralled and on edge. The most famous cipher of all was the Z340, a 340-character puzzle sent in November 1969. For 51 years, it remained a mystery. Dozens of experts and amateur sleuths tried everything. But it wasn't until 2020 that a team of 3 men, David Aranchak, Sam Blake, and Jarl Van Eyck, finally cracked it, using advanced code-breaking software. Here's what it said.
I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show. I am not afraid of the gas chamber.
Again, no name, no confession, just bravado. He referenced a recent TV interview where someone had called in pretending to be him. He rejected the imposter and boasted, once again, about how much he enjoyed killing. But there was one more clue buried in this cipher. The entire message was structured in a diagonal pattern, slanted, off-center, as if he wanted it to appear chaotic, but still had rules underneath. A performance, carefully masked as madness. Zodiac expert Michael Butterfield again notes that the ciphers weren't acts of genius. They were acts of control. The Zodiac used confusion as a weapon, not just to evade capture, but to ensure we never stopped looking. Through all of it, from the first cipher to the final card, one name kept showing up on every envelope: the San Francisco Chronicle. Zodiac wasn't writing to the police. He was writing to us, to the city, to the editors, to the people reading the headlines over their morning coffee, wondering, what if?
Search goes on in San Francisco for the man known as the Zodiac Killer. The elements involved today included psychiatrists, astrologists, and police guards for school buses. Terry Drinkwater reports.
School children are nice targets. I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, shoot out the tires, and then pick off the kiddies as they come bounding out. That was the threat of the Zodiac Killer. Now, every day, police cars follow the buses which would be likely targets. Officers armed with shotguns take the threat seriously. The psychotic killer has already murdered 5. 1 at a lover's lane near a lake just north of San Francisco. 3 others in nearby Vallejo. The latest, a taxi driver in San Francisco. The Zodiac Killer seems to crave publicity. He sent letters and cryptograms to newspapers and the police, recounting his crimes, threatening more murders, and making Bay Area residents very edgy.
In his violent movements, or rather the violent periods that he has been in, he's an absolutely ruthless, completely merciless killer. He calmly goes about his business of, in one case, telephoning the police, and another tearing a strip off the shirt of the dead body of the immediately killed victim. He doesn't get great excitement over it. He just he thinks killing is just killing. So somebody like that is going to be a very serious problem for us.
From witnesses, there are 2 generally similar composite drawings. He's around 30, reddish hair, 5 feet 10, crew cut, but not much more than that is known. Today, a meeting of lawmen and psychiatrists from all over the Bay Area. They are weighing advice from astrologers on the theory that perhaps the killer, who calls himself the Zodiac, may be planning his next victim based on astrological signs. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, San Francisco.
Zodiac threatened reporters, teased cryptographers, and once mailed a Halloween card to Chronicle journalist Paul Avery, suggesting Avery might be next. He turned the Chronicle into both a confidant and a hostage. The ciphers were only part of the story. The letters, the threats, the theater, that's where we saw his real power. Because even now, more than 50 years later, we're still decoding him. Next time, we'll begin turning the spotlight on the men accused of being Zodiac, from those who seem to fit too well to those who only exist in myth. The suspects, the theories, the chaos that followed. That's next time on From the Void.